Okay, well, I want to go ahead and get started just so there's quite a bit of material to cover. And we want to go ahead and get started and talk about what's happening here in South County. So, welcome to the South County breakout room. Hopefully, we're able to use Slido, and you've seen the directions in the chat and able to participate. So we'll expect that people may join us as we're continuing on, but just wanted to go ahead and get started. Just to confirm, the South Breakout Room is kind of from Maryland 4 all the way down to the Charles and Cecil County lines. And so just Charles and Calvert County. I said Cecil County. Charles and Calvert County lines. So I want to start the conversation this evening with a little bit of definitions on what is active transportation, the different tiers that we talked about, so that you have a little bit of baseline, you know what we're talking about, and kind of what the feedback we're looking for is. So, what is active transportation? Active transportation is the transport of people or goods through non-motorized means based around human physical activity. By that, we're including biking, walking, skateboarding, roller skating. So we're kind of including all of that. As we started talking with those agency and municipal leaders, we had a series of active transportation questions. And these are the questions that you see listed here. Some of the questions include, what are the biggest impediments to building new trails? What are the most significant gaps in the trail system? And how can MPOT help improve trail development and trail maintenance? So these are all very heavily weighted on a discussion around trails. In those earlier meetings with the agency and municipal leaders, some of the feedback we heard from them were that some of the impediments for existing and future trail paths included political priorities, challenges with funding, being able to get funding, lack of ownership regarding maintenance, meaning it may be a facility in the county, but it may abut or cross over a state road, and then you can't get between the state and the county, you may have a challenge, or it goes through two different municipalities, and so getting someone to say, I'm responsible for this, that can be a challenge. It also can include difficulties finding available right-of-way to put a trail, and having property information. Lastly, it could also include the lack of trail connectivity. So sometimes you're on a bike or you're walking and you get to a point and it just stops. And that can be some of the impediments to having a good trail network. Some of the locations that you see here where trail gaps were identified aren't in South County, but we had kind of this information and wanted to share it. So Laurel saw some gaps, Hyattsville, Rhode Island Avenue and Charles Armentrout Drive, and then where you have a state road crossing like 193, 202, or 201. Some of the improvements that were recommended at that time were, why don't we reassess the current trails and encourage some maintenance schedules? Maybe creating uniform wayfinding and lighting, or educating the public about active transportation. So maybe if more people understood about active transportation, you'd have a different result. So using Slido, hopefully everyone has Slido open and is willing to contribute here. Using Slido, in your view, what is missing from the active transportation feedback? And so in the chat, McKenna, thank you so much, has put in the feedback that we just had. So it's in the chat and you should be able to use that. So hopefully we'll get some responses here. What is missing from the active transportation feedback?
Good evening, Odessa. It's Rick here.
Hi, Rick.
On the meeting last night, I found it very helpful to actually see the previous screen, or if people want to take a picture of it, if you need to keep this screen active, to take a picture of that screen so they know what the list of is that they're comparing against. it's just a little helpful to see that and know what to respond to.
Absolutely. And what we did is put it in the chat. So if you look in the chat, those impediments are there. But it is helpful to have an opportunity to see it beforehand, to kind of be able to look back at it. And I was not having much luck yesterday going backward. Oh, I figured it out. I just need to press the arrow. So just to give you another opportunity to see. Is everybody able to use Slido? This Slido? I'm having a challenge. I want to just double check this. Hold on a moment. So sorry. Did not mean to show that screen. One moment. We'll go ahead again. Give me one more moment. Is everybody able to use it? Because mine is not active. McKenna, can you just double check that the Slido is active for input?
Yes, I'll double check right now.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. I'm assuming that was you, McKenna.
No, it wasn't me, but it is working.
Okay, so it is working. Great. I was having a challenge. Sometimes I just like to double check myself, make sure everything's working.
That was me, Odessa. It's Rick.
Oh, so you got it to work. Mine's just not working. Okay, awesome.
And for everyone's attention, I actually scanned the QR code right here on this screen and got right into Slido, and it worked just fine for me.
Great. So I am noting that okay, offer free rider period on transit. Promote group walks or bike rides for trails to bring exposure to public transportation modes. That is a great idea. Thank you for testing and thank you for participating. Anything else? I love the promote group walks and bike rides for trails to bring exposure to public transportation modes or to other active transportation modes. I think that's really important. If people know how to ride and where to ride, that's a great way to get information. Any other thoughts? Okay. All right. I am going to go ahead and move ahead to the next slide. I can get my stupid mouse to participate. So the next thing we want to talk about is Vision Zero. Just to help you understand, and again, we're the baseline, what is Vision Zero? Vision Zero is a countywide strategy to achieve zero fatalities or serious injuries on roadways by the year 2040. So this has been accepted and codified within the county. It's a recognition that the loss of even one life or a serious injury on our roadways is not acceptable. This is a data-driven approach for Vision Zero and reveals that vehicle vehicle crashes are actually predictable. And if they're predictable, then they are preventable. If you look at the crash data, you see that there's clearly a need for safety improvements on the roadways, and that can help with that predictability and making these incidents preventable. And the key to achieving success or achieving that Vision Zero goal is a combined approach, and it has 6 essential elements. So just to give you a little perspective, in the past, how we operated when it came to safety on the roadways versus kind of the Vision Zero approach. Traditionally, we said, you know what? Traffic deaths are inevitable. They're just inevitable. They're going to happen. It also said that human beings are going to be perfect, right? We're expecting perfect human behavior all of the time in order to avoid them. That's the only way to avoid them. That if we just prevent the collisions, we could prevent deaths. And that it was an individual's responsibility to prevent deaths. And ultimately, from a organizational perspective, it was that saving lives is expensive. And by that, I mean, in order to build in the additional safety measures that were required to keep people safe and save lives, they were cost prohibitive. The Vision Zero approach is slightly different. The Vision Zero approach, as I just mentioned, traffic deaths are predictable, or traffic incidents are predictable, and so therefore they're preventable. We also integrate that thought process that human beings have challenges, they have failures. And so if we incorporate that into the challenge and not expect that perfect driver as the only one that's never going to have an incident, then we can have a different approach. We can prevent fatal and severe crashes, but maybe not collisions. So it's a little bit of nuance, but it could be important. It also sees it more as a system. So the system being safer is as important here in this approach, and that saving lives is not expensive because every life is worth something. When we talked about Vision Zero, then we had a few questions again that were coming out of Slido. And so some of those questions were, what are some of the impediments to implementing a Vision Zero strategy? How can the master plan of transportation help to achieve Vision Zero goals? And are there safety improvements in one part of the county that you would like to see in another part? So those were some of the questions that we had. And I want to again advance us into a Slido and allow us to provide some feedback. Some of the impediments when it comes to Vision Zero per those agency and municipal groups were that you had limited funding and you may not have had the political will to do the improvements necessary. Education and driver behavior was also an impediment, right? So if you think about it, when you first get your driver's license is the only time you really have any education around how to behave and kind of the rules of the road. And so you establish for many people, you establish your driver behavior when you're a teenager and you grow up, you adjust. However, you're not necessarily adjusting your driving behaviors because that's what you learned in your formative periods. And then additional impediment is like a lack of collaboration. So if we can't get two adjacent jurisdictions to say, you know, the speed limit on this road that runs through both of our jurisdictions should be this, based on this information, or you can't get some other kind of collaboration, then it's an impediment to being able to actually successfully save lives or prevent serious crashes. The master plan of transportation can help achieve Vision Zero goals by doing a couple of things, maybe encouraging public participation and interagency coordination, and by incorporating safety infrastructure into the development proposals. One of the things we heard that they would like to see more of is pedestrian facilities, protected bike lanes, tactical urbanism, and improved urban design standards and roadways. So with that feedback in your mind, and it's going to go in the chat after this, wanted to know, in your view, what is missing from that Vision Zero feedback? So giving you a few moments to give your feedback. Give it a couple more minutes. Any thoughts? So kind of some of the ideas that could be included are how is it that we could do Vision Zero smarter, ways that we can encourage people to change their behavior. Do we maybe have driver's education or some other kind of functionality that allows people to do this differently? Those are just some of the ideas.
Odessa, if I may add, many of those in this group may know that the State Highway Administration also has a Vision Zero plan. And so I think it's important that the county work with the state, because the design of the state roadways definitely impact all the citizens in the county who drive on them. And so that collaboration, I think, is very important. And I'd encourage everybody to offer their thoughts as well.
Yeah. So partner Vision Zero with MVA educational resources, partner with at the state and local and municipal level so that you're kind of reaching everyone. That's definitely a very helpful approach. And partnering with the MVA. So I love that idea. Partnering with the MVA can be very helpful. All right. Just in the interest of time, we'll just go ahead and advance. So we'll talk a little bit about transit next. So just for definition's sake again, what is transit? Transit is motorized public transportation, and that can include a bus, bus rapid transit, or heavy rail transit. In this document, in the MPOT 2035, we'll identify locations within the county that can be considered high congestion, low transit corridors, meaning there are a lot of single occupancy vehicles, but not enough transit. Will I also identify best practices for addressing transportation concerns in these corridors? We'll identify roadways or transit infrastructure that may require additional infrastructure to help achieve kind of those long-term rideshare goals. And we'll identify the next large-scale corridor in the county and potential future bus transit corridors. So some of the transit questions include, where do you see transit in Prince George's County in the next 5, 10, or 15 years? And what are your priorities, concerns, and opportunities for transit? So in that 5 to 15 year time frame, what we found is that people wanted to see a wider, a broader transit network, wanted to see more frequent service, including late night or weekend service. They wanted to see a connection to transit-oriented development areas, kind of areas that are mixed use that allow the transit to be the kind of central location and there be other things that are happening there, and reorienting development to the street. Some of the priorities for transit include equity of access, meaning that it's available equitably across the county, that it connects the workers in the county to jobs, preferably in or near the county. It deals with the first and last mile issue, and that is really if you're using transit and you're never able to actually get to the bus stop because the bus stop is a mile from your home, that may be a huge deterrent. So how do we give you the transit facility that will, or transit tool that'll allow you to actually get that mile covered and then get on the transit system? And then also having a focus on a connected roadway system and that it's reliable and easy to use. So we'll ask again if there's anything missing from that transit feedback, and we're going to go ahead and post in terms of transit in the chat, the transit feedback. So just paying, close attention to the interaction. here. We're not getting a lot of interaction on Slido. So thank you, Rick, for piping in. Very helpful. Is everybody able to maybe unmute themselves and maybe participate verbally if you don't want to use the chat function? Or are more interested in kind of hearing and not so interested in providing input? So I want to make sure we're meeting everyone's needs here. So question asked, how will transit be accommodated in more rural areas? One of the things that the master plan of transportation can do is help identify ways that we can accommodate transit in more rural areas. It may not say for certain what will happen, but there are a number of different thoughts around what can be done. Generally, one of the difficulties with having transit in rural areas is frequency. How frequently should those operate? And the second part being timing, because people may not be going to the same destinations. They're a little bit further spread apart, and you may not have as many individuals using the system. But one of the great things that the county has implemented recently, and it is in South County only at the moment, is a tool called PGC Link. It's essentially what they call microtransit. And PGC Link is a similar in concept to Uber or Lyft, in that it is more individually based and less based on kind of a fixed route. It's not a fixed route system. And it's currently being offered in a couple areas in the county, all in South County. It's operating in Oxon Hill, but it's kind of a demand-based system. And that is one of the things that's being done in more rural areas of the county. Any other questions? One of the questions is, how can municipalities obtain public funding to run their own transit and to fill in the gaps? And so that's a great question that we should make sure that the MPOT is maybe thinking about what funding opportunities may be there for running transit systems. Sometimes it's difficult. Transit funding can be difficult to obtain, largely because if you don't have a lot of ridership, it makes it difficult, and you kind of want ridership to generate the need. And then sometimes it's difficult because you've got to shift people from being comfortable in their single occupancy vehicles into being comfortable with running, with using transit and transit systems. All right. So we're going to talk next about roadways. So the master plan of transportation will evaluate master plan rights of way for all roadway classifications. It will also identify where there may be additional roads that should be proposed for future construction. It can also assess the existing and maybe identify the possible designation of future scenic and historic roadways. And it will identify roads that may require additional infrastructure so that they can come to the adequate level of service, meaning how quickly vehicles are able to move through intersections, move along the corridors, so to accommodate that current and expected load share. Some of the roadway questions we ask the municipal and agency leaders include, what roadway elements and factors has Prince George's County seen since 2009 that would impact the roadway facility recommendations in the new master plan of transportation? And then another question was, what specific issues or considerations should be addressed in the update for the MPOT as part of the scenic and historic road designations process, or for the application of special design standards for those designated roadways? Those are two that are kind of more focused, but if there are questions about roadways, we're definitely willing to have more generic discussion around roadways, especially here in the South County. Some of the factors have changed since the 2009 MPOT include the budgetary constraints and more maintenance, right-of-way widths for utilities, trails, and bike lanes, federal infrastructure money, more accidents, an increased emphasis on non-vehicular travel and electric vehicles, changing growth in commute patterns, changing corridors like the US 1, 301, and Maryland 4 corridors. And then some scenic and roadway and historic roadway considerations include driver and bicycle safety, accommodating utilities, that's a huge one, and the need for a quantifiable scale to designate scenic roadways. So, considering this feedback, and that again will be placed in the chat, in your view, what is missing from the roadways? In your view, what is missing from the roadways discussion?
Odessa, if I may start the discussion on this.
Yeah,
It's important to note that the way the county and the state look at roadway capacity these days are much different than it was in 2009. In the past, level of service on the roadway, the ability to get vehicles moving through that roadway network seemed to be the most important factor. But these days, there's much more emphasis on all the modes that use that corridor, not just the roads. Not just the vehicles.
okay, for sure. And that does make a huge difference in how you start to think about and plan for kind of what's going to happen in the future. So that is a great piece of feedback, Rick. I think that's helpful. Okay. All right. So we're going to so I'm thinking that one of the things we may do we're at our check-in moment here. And just because we're kind of going kind of quickly through the presentation, I'm wondering if it may make a lot of sense for us to merge into the central meeting, just because we want to kind of have a robust conversation and make sure that you're hearing a little bit more. So I'm open to it if there's a thought and maybe we can merge into the central. I know there are a few people there, but at least we may have a little bit more of a robust conversation. I think that's important to make sure we get feedback. So is there a thought on that? What we'll do is go ahead and just paste the central link in this room, and then you can click on that link. And then, because I think Central and South make a lot of sense to be merged together in conversation. Any thoughts? Saw a thumbs up. Any others? I think we're right now pretty heavily our project team members. So I want to make sure that the participant from the public is getting to hear some of the conversation from other members of the community. McKenna, are you able to paste the central meeting here, the link just to central for us?
Yes, I'm doing that right now.
That's awesome. So if we could click there and join that central room, I think it would be really helpful for us to have a robust conversation and make sure that everyone gets to at least hear some thoughts around transportation and be able to participate.
Yep, sounds good.
Great, thanks.